Do you really want me to talk? Do you?
What, you expect me to do a podcast all by myself?
Well, no, because, you'll screw it up or something.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Ha.
So, hey everybody, it's Sean
And Lisa.
Yeah, and this is I think it's episode 10?
I have no idea.
Oh boy, I can't count anymore. Oh yeah, in case you couldn't read on your podcast feeder, this is Tune X Podcast, and Lisa and I have been married for a while, and so you get to listen to us talk about the Beach Boys, which...
Because that's what we do.
Yeah, you're basically like eavesdropping on our normal lives here.
Yeah, because we really do talk about this stuff all the time.
Seriously.
Like, over Chinese buffet food, walking.
We haven't been to a Chinese buffet in over a decade.
We used to, and
yeah.
Or like while we're walking the dog, or, I mean, whatever.
It's usually either that or the Beatles.
Well,
but,
yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Everybody and his pet duck has a Beatles podcast, so we're doing a Beach Boys podcast.
Well, yeah.
But yeah. So we're coming right off of seeing Al Jardine, Family and Friends, just a couple of days from when we were recording this.
And by the way, the family was his son, Matt, who also tours with Brian Wilson's band. And the friends are Carney and Wendy Wilson of Wilson Phillips.
Yes.
And Brian's daughters.
That's right.
And it's kind of funny, like, Al has been part of this whole thing for so long. He was there when these girls were born. Like, he and his wife bought them shower gifts, probably, and baby gifts. And I was telling Sean, like, seriously, Carney and Wendy probably think of Al as another uncle. And Matt and his brother Adam are cousins. Like, even though there's no relation, yet there is.
And there's still family because Carney's husband was in the band.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Rob.
Yeah. I was expecting Probin, but there was Rob, so
and there
I guess
was
they switched
also
off.
Bobby Figueroa and Ed Carter, who are longtime Beach Boys touring band members.
Well, were longtime tours.
But they came into the fold sometime around, like, I think Ed Carter came in around 1968.
Yeah.
And Bobby Figueroa, I think, a few years later. And then there was, what's the girl who was on the keyboards that you called?
Oh, that was Debbie Scher.
That you called Girl Darien.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like she's a female Darian Sahanaja.
Yeah, the guys who were sitting next to us, that's Darian's wife up there. I don't know if that's true. I really don't. Maybe she is. I have no idea. It would not surprise me the least.
No.
It would not. Those two are perfect together.
So, yeah, it was a great way to kick off Memorial Day weekend, to just hear some Beach Boys music and
an actual Beach Boy.
And a little bit of Wilson Phillips, too.
Yeah, oh my Lord. It was a good thing I was sitting down when they did their first song, because
they did
seriously,
Impulsive.
When Carney and Wendy and Matt sang together in 3-part harmony, it was mind-blowing. Seriously, it was so tight.
Yeah, Carney is an absolute hoot. If you're ever at a show and Carney is on stage, keep your eye on her, because she has all of Brian's extrovert qualities.
Yep.
She also you could picture her being a little kid, bouncing all over the house and singing into a hairbrush and wanting to perform after dinner or something. She does not stop. She is so much fun to watch. Like, she just enjoys being up on a stage in front of an audience. But it's not obnoxious. It just added to the performance. Like, she was truly having fun. And it's funny that she's the older sister, but yet, because Wendy's totally different. Wendy is very more low-key, very poised, just kind of even more sophisticated, just how they were dressed. Because, Wendy was wearing a black blouse and, like, these tight, like, almost mid-60s style gold pants and high-heeled sandals. And Carney had, like, a little black dress and her hair in pigtails. Carney looked like a kid up there. So it was just a lot of fun. And she just really, added to the whole thing. And also, she had said several times how happy she was to just be at a concert.
Yeah.
Whether or not she was performing was irrelevant because she's like, live music is back. Isn't that great? And it kind of, you realize that everybody was hit by the pandemic and the lockdowns. Like, it doesn't matter how rich or famous you are, like, your butt was still at home too. So I think there's a lot of gratitude that shows and tours and things are happening again.
Well, I was happy to be there. I mean, we'd already been to a couple of concerts since, but of course, it's always a good thing.
It just feels good, and especially when you see just how literally everybody is touring.
Yeah.
You name an artist, they are out there. It's like people who haven't toured in years.
Well, David Crosby won't be. He recently announced he's retiring from touring.
Oh, okay.
He said, man, I'm just too old.
Oh, he needs to just shut up. It's like he's old, he's at death's door. Shut up, man.
Yeah, he's been saying, I'm going to be dead in the next 2 years for like the past 10 years, I think. He's doing pretty well, actually. Even he survived COVID, too.
Well, he survived a lot of things.
He survived a lot of things.
I think he's just feeling the weight of surviving a lot of things.
Is there any other topically related things that have occurred recently that we should touch upon briefly before we get into our big thing?
Do you have something in mind? I don't
think so, but there is something fairly recent that I should bring up that'll kind of transition us into our topic. And everybody's heard by now that the triple platinum Sounds of Summer compilation is getting an overhaul, a massive overhaul in terms of content, coming out on June 17th. 3 CDs worth. And there's going to be a really nice 6-record set on vinyl, which from the pictures I saw, it looks like they did a really nice job on. They were paying really good attention to the details on the labels. They had different eras of Capitol labels on them, including the ugly green thing. And it looked really cool. I'm not going to get it, having said that.
Well, no, because we pretty much have everything.
Yeah, really. I don't need another compilation.
Yeah.
But, of course, the big news, and we're not the first podcast to talk about that, was the big controversy over the Good Vibrations stereo remix. The S in the word "wears" disappeared in the mix.
I love the colorful clothes you wear.
You can't hear the S. So everybody's like, oh my goodness, where did the S go? They use too much de-essing on this mix and all this. So I always thought there are many performances in which you just cannot hear that S just because of the way Carl sang it. So I did a little survey. Performances in which you can hear the S. Most occurrences of the single version. You can barely hear it, though. It's barely there. It's almost not there.
I love the colorful clothes you wear.
The Smiley Smile stereo remix has the S. In concert, the Hawaii rehearsal on Sunshine Tomorrow has it. Nebworth 80, both Michigan 1966 shows. The version on Songs from Here and Back. The DAR Constitution Hall performance that's on the Pet Sounds 50th anniversary box. The Honolulu International Center concert from August 25th. The Layton Hawaii mono mix on Sunshine Tomorrow. The Hawaii rehearsal from Live Sunshine. And Finsbury Park Astoria 1968 sound check. That's 12 that have the S. Versions that don't have the S, the Live in London version, the rehearsal that's on the Good Vibrations 40th anniversary set.
I love the colorful clothes you wear.
The Back Bay Theater in Boston concert in November 67. The Chicago 1968 version, but it's probably tape hiss, actually. That kind of drowns it out. The other DAR Constitution Hall concert that's on Live Sunshine, there are 2 shows that day. So one show has the S, the other doesn't. Fargo 1968, but of course there's a lot of audience noise, tape hiss.
Okay. I'm about to fall asleep here.
Good.
Do we really need to go over this?
Go. Okay, there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Do we need to go
6,
over
7,
this?
8. There are 10 more that have the S. So 16 versions have the S. There are 3 that I could not tell, to be honest. The rehearsal that's on Endless Harmony, the version that's on Hawthorne, California, I kind of think that it does have it, but I'm not sure. And the Waterloo 1968 version, but the audience is too loud to tell for sure.
Oh my God,
so,
stop.
Yeah.
Ah!
So there you go. It depends on which version you're looking for.
Yeah, it depends on your butt.
Well, here, look at my butt and
I'm
tell
sorry,
me.
that's just too...
Nowhere else but on TuneX Podcast are you going to have that breakdown.
Oh my
You're
God.
welcome.
Oh my God. All right, can we move on?
Can we move on? Okay, well, the thing is, Sounds of Summer seems to be like the main Beach Boys compilation.
Well, it
and I
is.
think this new reissue that's coming out is definitely going to be the one, like probably the best one out there because it covers a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, because Sounds of Summer, that first came out, what, like early 2000s, I think?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
2003, I want to say.
Yeah, and it had a reissue about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and now they're doing another one.
But whenever it comes out with proper attention, it does sell very well. I mean, I know a lot of fans complain like, oh, am I going to have to buy this for this special mix of whatever? And it's like,
Do you really need that
it's
special
like,
mix?
yes, no, it doesn't matter because, I mean, I care more. Are people who have never bought Beach Boys music before gonna buy this? And
Yeah.
the answer, as we have seen over and over, is yes, because the people who bought it when it first came out, the people who put it on the Billboard charts periodically, I don't know if it's every year, but I do hear fairly often that Sounds of Summer has charted. And it's like, it's not just us. It's not the fans buying this. It's people who went to a Beach Boys concert and really enjoyed it, or be like, you know what, this is a good collection. This has all the songs I like. I'm going to pick this up. That's what I care about, because that's what opens the door to other things, as many of us in the fan community can attest. That's how we started, and that is what we are going to be discussing.
Yeah,
right
indeed.
now.
Indeed. But really, I think that 3 CD Sounds of Summer is going to be a great one because it covers just about all eras up to Kokomo. Like, there's a lot of 70s stuff on it. So it's going to be a really good one.
Yeah.
But previously, before we had Sounds of Summer, what was the big Beach Boys compilation that everybody was going nuts for?
Well, before Sounds of Summer, we had the 3 CDs, like in the late 90s.
Yeah.
There were 3 CDs, 2 CDs of the Beach Boys stuff that you expected, and then there was a separate CD that was all from the Caribou era, the 70s stuff, that kind of got its own spotlight. So it was almost like they took a lot of the Good Vibrations box set and just put out 3 separate CDs so people could buy what they wanted.
Yeah, they were called Greatest Hits.
And then before that, you had Made in the USA.
Made in USA,
Oh, whatever.
Made in the USA was a Blues Brothers. No, Made in America
Okay,
was Blues Brothers,
okay.
sorry.
Made in USA was out, I think, around 1986.
Yeah.
And that was kind of your good standard issue Beach Boys Greatest Hits single disc. Because I don't know, was it on CD?
Oh, yeah.
It would have. Yeah, that's right. That's right at the dawn of when CDs were part of the release package.
Yeah, that was back when you couldn't get the regular version of Wouldn't It Be Nice. You had that weird remix that they had to use because they lost the original master.
I think that CD kind of replaced what had been the flag bearer of Beach Boys' greatest hits, which was Endless Summer.
Yeah.
Which came out in 1974.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a #1 hit album for the Beach Boys, thanks in part to a huge amount of advertising on television, because that was around the time with K-Tel and things like that when there was a lot of advertising to buy the record from TV and have it shipped directly to your house instead of having to get in your Datsun or whatever you had back then, or your AMC. What were those cars that blew up?
Oh, the Gremlin?
Yeah.
Or in my mother's case, her treasured red Pontiac.
Or your Nova or
well, then
something.
again, my mother wouldn't go out and buy a Beach Boys record.
You know, and go over to your local mall or Woolco or whatever and buy the record. You could order it from the TV.
Yeah.
That was a big deal because my dad really liked doing that. I mean, I still have a multi-record box set of pretty much every great late 1950s song. It was basically like my dad's favorite music from high school, and he bought that thing real quick. I don't even know if that was in stores. I think it was only sold through TV.
It was that
So,
pink box.
The pink box. Yep. We have it.
We call it the pink box.
We have it. But Endless Summer had this great big huge promotion and it sold like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very nice collection of Beach Boys hits. It did the job.
It almost did the job because
Well-
there were some notable missing songs that did end up on a follow-up album the following year, Spirit of America.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did a little look into the track listing, and most of the songs are either A-sides or B-sides of their hit singles from the 60s, from pre-1966.
Yeah, the only
And-
hit single missing was Surfin', which Capitol didn't have the rights to at that time, so they couldn't have
And
put
that
it out if they
was
wanted
that
to.
wasn't a national hit. It went to number 75, but I mean it did very well
in California.
in the LA area,
Yeah.
but I mean that charted okay nationally. I mean okay for a little song by a brand new band,
Yeah.
but the real hefty stuff. I mean, on Endless Summer, the only album tracks that you have are Catch a Wave, The Girls on the Beach, and
Warmth of the Sun.
no, Warmth of the Sun.
That was not on a single.
Yes, it was. It was the B-side of Dance, Dance, Dance.
It was?
Let me double check, make sure my notes are correct.
Yeah, I'm checking I've been podcasting for 7 years, and this is the first time ever I actually have paper notes. Because I actually did list out all of their singles.
Ahem.
You got something in your throat there?
Yeah, it's called the picture sleeve that says Dance, Dance, Dance and the Warmth of the Sun.
Okay, fine.
Of course,
whatever.
talk about an oddball A and B side.
Yeah, that was weird. They
don't actually flow together.
Yeah, starting in 1964, their A-sides and B-sides tended not to be on the same album, with Fun being an exception.
And All Summer Long, much to my surprise, is an album-only track.
Yeah.
I could have sworn that was a single, but no.
Technically, there are 2 other album tracks.
Well, yes,
but
that they used the album versions of Be True to Your School and Help Me Rhonda instead of the single versions.
It's just weird that they couldn't find the masters for the singles, though.
Well,
Considering
because
how common
somebody was probably using them as a coaster or something. I don't know. And then, of course, you have the song Wendy was not on a single or an album. It was on an EP titled...
It was on All Summer Long.
Oh, okay. Okay, it was. But it was put out on an EP called 4 by the Beach Boys.
Yeah. Is that entire EP on...
All the songs on that EP appear on the records we're going to discuss.
Okay. I gotcha.
But Wendy is the only 4x song that is on this album.
Mm-hmm.
The album art is quite weird. I did a little deep dive into the artist, this guy Keith McConnell, because he did the artwork for Endless Summer, Spirit of America, and Sunshine Dream, which we will be discussing. It turns out this guy, he had been in something called the Marine Corps Combat Art Program, which had artists basically creating artworks of the war, the Vietnam War. And this was something that had been around since 1942, because it was believed that photography alone, like an artist could emphasize or provide perspectives that photography alone simply could not do. Now, I mean, I don't know enough about art to argue that or say if it's correct or whatever, but that's what this guy, Keith McConnell, was involved with. Not only was he in this art corps for Vietnam, but he actually went to Iraq for Desert Storm. He went back into service after having been in the reserves for a long time. Something else notable is that he created several posters to promote Toys for Tots, the Marine Corps Toys for Tots program. So I found that kind of interesting. And his work has been very highly regarded by the Marines. But in the 70s, after he got back from Vietnam, he did some freelance work, and that's how he got involved with doing these Beach Boys album covers. I was able to find he did an album cover for a Jack Benny collection that came out sometime in the 70s as well.
Was that on Capitol by any chance? Do you know?
I don't know. I think I just only found like a picture of it. But the Endless Summer cover, I mean, you know, it's a gatefold, and you have on the front 3 people kind of peeking out of a great deal of greenery with an ocean wave. 2 of them are very heavily bearded with long hair, and one person has short hair and no facial hair at all. And then on the back cover, you have another bearded, mustached person, and then you have somebody with long hair and no facial hair. And on the inside, you have a heavy person with long hair and no facial hair. And I'm wondering, who on earth are these people supposed to represent? I mean, the only one that is easy to tell is the person with long blonde hair is probably supposed to be Dennis, because his face is on a surfboard. But the others, I don't know.
Well, the way you're holding it, I can see the front cover, and I'm guessing the person semi-hidden behind the leaves is supposed to be Brian. I think above him it's supposed to be Mike, and then it's supposed to be Al.
Yeah, but the heavy guy on the inside, who the heck is that supposed to be?
The thing is, my first thought was that must be Fat Elvis, but he wasn't fat yet.
But also, why on earth would Elvis be on Endless Summer?
For the same reason Dick Clark is in Spirit of America.
Yeah, but we haven't gotten to that yet.
I know, but still, I needed to draw that reasoning
I mean, it's kind of bizarre. And I have heard people in the fan community, people who are around my age who were kids in the 70s, that they actually found this cover kind of scary. Because they do look a little sinister.
I was talking to a coworker of mine, a former coworker, who's around my age, actually. He said that I think when he was like 14 years old, he wanted Endless Summer. He asked for that for his birthday or Christmas or anything, and he got it. And he said he looked at the cover and thought, this is Revolver. And I can kind of see that in a way.
But it's, I don't know. I mean, I'm not disrespecting the artist at all, but it just seems like, especially since there are 6 people, when at the time the main lineup of the Beach Boys only had 5 because Bruce was not part of the group at the time. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, did this guy know anything about the Beach Boys? I mean, I don't know.
You don't know. Yeah.
If he had been in Vietnam and been in the Marines, and maybe he heard their songs once in a while, but really didn't know much about them.
Yeah, that's possible. I love it. There's an interview that Mike Love did with Goldmine sometime in the 90s, not during the songwriting lawsuit, but in the days leading up to it, I think, in which somebody asked him about Endless Summer, and he laughed about it and said, God, that was an ugly cover.
It's an ugly cover that contains beautiful stuff.
It does. And one thing you can't deny is anytime somebody talks about Endless Summer, they're going to talk about that cover.
But I mean,
it's memorable.
But I mean, when you look at this track listing, there is not a dud on this record. Every song is... There's
a song that I hate, but I will never call it a dud.
Yeah. That's just your own personal
That's my own
preference.
Personal thing,
but you still will admit that it's a great song.
And it's nothing but Hook.
I mean, this is just an amazing collection.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, it stops with a screeching halt at mid-1965.
Well, yeah. Thing is, Capitol did not have the rights to anything after that.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that as we go along. But hey, just for fun, let's remind people what's on this album. On side 1, you have Surfin' Safari, Surfer Girl, Catch a Wave, The Warmth of the Sun, and Surfin' USA.
And then on side 2, you have Be True to Your School, Little Deuce Coupe, In My Room, Shut Down, and Fun, Fun, Fun.
And then you have I Get Around on side 3, followed by Girls on the Beach, Wendy, Let 'Em Run Wild, and Don't Worry, Baby.
And then finally, you have California Girls, Girl Don't Tell Me, Help Me Rhonda, You're So Good to Me, and All Summer Long.
Yeah, and again, Help Me Rhonda and Be True to Your School are the alternate versions that were not the single versions. And I should point out that if there was a stereo mix available, they used it. Otherwise, it was high, low, fake stereo. Not the full duophonic, but just highs on one side, lows on the other. Except maybe I think Surfin' Safari was true mono.
And hey, I remember this is how I learned what stereo really was, because we had a really good Radio Shack realistic brand, stereo receiver. The volume control had actually 2 little sliders, one for left, one for right. And I don't know how I came upon this, but I remember realizing that if I put one side all the way down for Don't Worry Baby, I only heard part of the song. There was stuff that was missing. And if I switched it, if I put the other fader up and pushed the left one up and pushed the right one down, there were other things that I could hear or not hear. And it was like, oh, that's what stereo is.
Yeah.
I mean, usually it's not that distinctly separated, but that mix happened to be. So that was a nice little learning experience for me when I was, 8 years old or something.
Yeah, I don't remember when I heard this album because my compilation albums that I was more familiar with were the original Capitol Best of Volumes 1 and 2 from 66 and 67. I think I was in Clearwater Beach with the family when there were some other people staying and they were having a little party out on the dock and somebody was playing, I think it was Endless Summer, judging by what the songs that I heard in the order that I heard them.
This track listing is a little bit foreign to me because we had the 8-track, which had a different, somewhat of a different lineup. Like I know on Channel 4, California Girls was followed by Let 'Em Run Wild.
That's a
1-2 punch, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's program 4, I remember, was California Girls, Let 'Em Run Wild, Girl Don't Tell Me, You're So Good to Me, and All Summer Long. You just can't beat it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even though this was missing hits, missing things that should have been there, for what it is, it's a good, solid collection. And like I said, it sold like crazy. It went to number 1 2 summers in a row because the following year, in 1975, it charted again. So it worked.
Yeah. We should also mention that it comes with a poster. And I don't know why they made a poster out of that thing. It's a plane.
It's a banner plane.
It's a banner plane with, what does the banner say? It's just Endless Summer or something?
Yeah.
Like, does it even mention the Beach Boys?
No.
And I was wondering, what in the world does that have anything to do with? I think that plane is featured in the commercial.
Oh.
I think there's actual footage of that plane flying somewhere.
I mean, this came out when I was 2.5. So, I mean, I don't remember the TV commercial.
This came out when I was in the womb.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You weren't even born yet.
Yeah.
But it definitely did the job.
Sorry to interrupt the flow here, but just a couple of comments I wanted to make. In preparation for this episode, I listened to our copy of it, and a few observations I made. First of all, when you sit down and listen to this album, it is like being repeatedly smacked in the head as to how many freaking hits they had. And they're not even all in this album.
Yeah, how many hits they had within the space of 3 years, 62 to 65.
Yeah, it's just mind-blowing. And also another observation I had, side 4, entirely mono or fake stereo at least. And I don't know if it's just our copy. Our copy was pressed in Hollywood and mastered by Wally Traugott, or however his name is pronounced. It has a little name Wally etched in the vinyl. And I think he has a good reputation, but our copy sounds fantastic. It sounds amazing. So that also helps. If everybody's copy sounds as good as ours, then you're in for a great listening experience.
Yeah, and I mean, this was what opened the door for me because my father bought multiple copies of the 8-track tape, which I've talked about before. There was a copy in the house. There was a copy in his car, my mom's car. And I heard this over and over and over and over and started playing it myself over and over and over. And it was, I mean, it's just something that's always been a part of me. Like, I mean, when I got a CD player, a CD boombox as a high school graduation present.
Yeah, and like you talked about in the previous episode.
Yeah. And the day of my party, I asked my friend Susan to stop off at the mall and pick up a copy of the Endless Summer CD.
Yeah, which brings me to this. The Endless Summer CD had a couple of things that the original one didn't have. First of all, it had good vibrations.
Yes.
Second of all, I think it actually had the single versions of Be True to Your School and Help Me Rhonda.
I don't know.
It was reissued with those single versions at some point.
Yeah.
And something odd that I found about this album was that Well, first of all, in the United States, what's the typical number of tracks you have on an album side?
Like 6?
6. This one has only 5. And when you look at the track listing, you're thinking, wait a minute, what about Barbara Ann? What about Dance, Dance, Dance?
Mm-hmm.
What about When I Grow Up to Be a Man?
And The Little Girl I Once Knew.
And The Little Girl I Once Knew, which was a hit, believe it or not. It went to number 20, I think.
Well, that's what the next record was for.
No!
So in 1975, like I said, Endless Summer was still selling well, but they put out another compilation called Spirit of America.
Yes.
And before we get into talking about the songs, I need to do a brief rant about Keith McConnell's cover for this thing. And it's a big collage of all kinds of different American icons. Like there's a television set where on the screen is a TV dinner. There's
literally a TV dinner.
There's a guy who kind of looks a little like Teddy Roosevelt. There's an Uncle Sam. There's a guy in colonial garb. There's a Goodyear blimp that's actually a football. There's a hand holding up a hot dog. Oh, actually, the hand holding the hot dog belongs to somebody who is kind of a pop art Superman, where his cape is stripes and his outfit has a lightning bolt on it and a peace sign, and he's also holding popcorn. There's a guy wearing an elaborate First Nations headdress with red and blue feathers. There's kind of a gangster-looking dude. There's a Miss America, the Statue of Liberty, a turkey, a baseball mitt with a hole in it where you can see the moon landing. There's a little ball headed towards a crater with a golf flag in it. So I guess a little nod to, I think it was the Apollo 14 where they actually hit a golf ball on the moon.
Yeah.
And there's Mickey Mouse.
And there's a copyright notice for Mickey Mouse on here.
Yep.
So somebody paid a lot of money to
There's
Disney.
the Brooklyn Bridge, the Mount Rushmore, an eagle, an apple pie, a girl in a bikini that has the Playboy Bunny logo on it, the Liberty Bell. So all these American icons.
And the Barry Goldwater 1964 campaign button.
Lots of red, white, and blue. But what on earth does this have to do with the Beach Boys or the contents of the album?
Well, the Beach Boys are America's band.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, my logic of this may have been just simply a pre-bicentennial artwork that this guy created.
I am sure that has something to do with it.
And that they took it and slapped the Beach Boys Spirit of America on the front. That this artist may not have drawn this deliberately for the Beach Boys, because it does look like standard issue bicentennial rah rah yay America. And I mean, I was only a little kid when the bicentennial happened. You don't remember because you were still a tiny kid.
Yeah.
I was starting to have more awareness. And I remember how, I mean, during that time, like 75 and 76, and anybody who was around that time can, I'm sure, agree with me that red, white, and blue was coming out of everyone's behinds. I mean, everything was star-spangled.
I was still seeing remnants of that when my brain started remembering things.
I mean, my mother bought a Eureka upright vacuum cleaner around that time. The bag of the vacuum cleaner that usually was printed with, stripes, or it was plaid, or, some kind of pleasant design. This freaking thing had eagles and Liberty Bells and stars all over it. So even a vacuum cleaner was dressed up for the bicentennial. I had Barbie clothes that were star-spangled, crazy, everything red and blue, and red, white, and blue. I mean, yes, I do agree this could have gone along with the Beach Boys being America's band sort of thing. But did that even really come about until 1976 when they were touring that summer? I just really think they took this artwork and slapped their name on it.
Yeah, especially because the artist did no attempt whatsoever to draw the Beach Boys at all.
Yeah, and there's nothing, I mean, even except for the girl in the Playboy Bunny bikini, there's nothing beachy about this. So, yeah. And the inside, unlike Endless Summer, the inside gatefold doesn't really continue that artwork. So like on the inside of the gatefold, you have a variety of pictures of the Beach Boys, you have pictures from the 60s. There's one picture that looks like it's from circa 70, 71. Then one's from the current time, from about 1974, which really is kind of unfortunate because compared to the 60s pictures, it's like, man, do they look rough. And then for some weird reason, the right-hand side of the gatefold is this huge rendering of Dick Clark.
A young Dick Clark.
Like a young Dick Clark. It's like, huh? Like,
while you started to flip the thing, I have a question for you. That fish in the upper left corner of the back cover, is that fish in a toilet?
I don't know.
And it just occurred to me what that whole collage reeks of. It's
What?
very Yellow Submarine.
In a way, yeah. I could see that. It is kind of a psychedelic artwork, definitely. Like, even though this is from the mid-70s, I wouldn't be surprised if it was drawn in 1967. I mean, it definitely is psychedelic.
Mm-hmm.
But
Definitely has a Heinz Edelman vibe.
But
to
yeah,
it.
it's like, why is Dick Clark like? I don't know.
I don't know, but I have a feeling that the reason you have that Spirit of America title is that somebody at Capitol who was in charge of putting this album together was going through their catalog, and they're like, holy crap, the Beach Boys have a song called Spirit of America. Our bicentennial's about to happen. We got to make an album out of that.
I mean, marketing wise, that's great, but did they actually listen to the song? Probably not. Because the song Spirit of America is about when Craig Breedlove broke the land speed record in 1963 or something at the Bonneville Salt Flats. It's not about America. It's about, like, Spirit of America was the name of his rocket car.
Hey, at least it's not as bad as people like using Born in the USA as a patriotic song.
Well, yeah, because it's
know,
not. It's not. Springsteen's like, please stop. So this collection has more album tracks than Endless Summer did. It has a lot fewer single sides. I mean, you do have Dance, Dance, Dance. You have Breakaway, which was the Beach Boys' last Capitol single from 1969.
Cotton Fields, wasn't it? Wait, which came first? Cotton Fields came out in 70, I think.
No, Cotton Fields, I think, came out in 70 overseas. I think here it was just kind of that may have been their very last Capitol, really, but by 1969, Capitol was doing nothing to promote the Beach Boys anymore. So,
yeah.
I mean, Breakaway, it's amazing it made it to 63 because that's what it peaked as. And yeah, I'm kind of surprised it made it that high.
And by the way, the reason that Breakaway is on this album, or can be on this album, I should say, you're probably saying, wait a minute, didn't U2 just talk about how Capitol Records did not have the rights to the Beach Boys after 1966? I actually asked around about that, and apparently what the deal was, Capitol had the rights to the albums up until 1966, but the loophole here is that Breakaway was never on an album, so they
it was
were able
only
to get
a
away
single.
with it. So that's how that ended up here.
And then you had 409, which was
And A Young Man Is Gone.
No, I'm only talking.
Oh, never mind.
Will
Sorry.
you just let me
I thought
talk?
you were going through each one.
No,
by one.
I'm just talking about what the single sides were.
Go on.
So you had 409, which was the B-side to Surfin' Safari. Please Let Me Wonder, which was the B-side of Do You Want to Dance? And Why Do Fools Fall in Love, which was the B-side of Fun, Fun, Fun. And Barbara Ann, which was a huge hit.
Number 2 on Billboard, number 1 on Cashbox.
Which kind of makes me wonder if that was supposed to be on Endless Summer, but they either just didn't have the room for it, or that they wanted to just stick more with summer themes, which is why you had, say, an album track like The Girls on the Beach.
There were only 20
Yeah,
songs on
I
that.
know.
They had room for one
Yeah,
more.
I know.
I think they purposely let it off so they could build another album.
True. Well, Salt Lake City was a promotional single in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't part of the overall Beach Boys single discography. Then you had When I Grow Up to Be a Man, Do You Want to Dance? And the other 3 songs from 4 by the Beach Boys, Little Honda, Hushabye, and Don't Back Down. And all the rest of the songs are album tracks. Would you like to list those?
Sure. Okay. So starting off on side 1, you had Dance, 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 which was in the
No,
high-low fixed stereo.
I meant just talk about the album-only tracks, or do
the
you not
album-only
have that?
track. Oh, okay. A Young Man Is Gone is smack in the middle of side 1.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird. I'm so used to it being an album closer almost. Spirit of America, of course. Hawaii. The thing is, Hawaii it wasn't a single, but it's still a pretty popular Beach Boys song.
Well, I think because they often did it in concert.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Drive In, Good to My Baby. Tell Me Why. That was an odd one. Do You Remember? And by the way, I just want to tell you folks, because I have the opportunity now, if you have a way to listen to Do You Remember, just the instrumental track,
Oh, yeah.
do it. It is such a
It
killer
is
backing
good.
track. It is so tight, so cool. This Car of Mine, which, fun fact, during my brief 2-year professional radio career at a modern rock station in the Chicago suburbs, I actually got a request for that once from a guy who was listening to our station while he was refurbishing a sports car or something. And I said, man, if I had known you'd be calling, I'd have brought my Beach Boys CDs with me. He said, okay, how about Red Barchetta instead? I said, you got it. So Custom Machine, which seems kind of weird, but apparently people like that. We know Dave Barry likes it.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those Beach Boys album tracks that, you listen to and you're like, man, this is good.
I don't
Just
care
kinda
much
like-
for it, but I can see why somebody
Or
would.
like This Car of Mine. I mean, that's a very lovely Denny vocal.
Mm-hmm. It's very good, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, was Don't Back Down on the 4x EP?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah. And that's the standard version. The alternate version hadn't been released yet for
Yeah.
another 15 years. Graduation Day.
That's right.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not terribly surprising to see that on compilation because it's not the first time it was on a compilation. It was on Best of the Beach Boys Volume 2 in 1967. I haven't listened to that album in a long time, so I don't know if this is unique to Spirit of America, but Mike's entire intro is cut out completely. It just starts with the Beach Boys singing it. Like, it starts right before the verse starts. There's no instrumental intro or anything. It just starts right before the verse.
But it does include the great little, when they say, we'll remember always graduation. And then you hear Dennis go, day!
What I love is that on the raw tapes before it's not on I don't think you can really hear it on the concert album, but I think if you listen to the actual concert itself, you can hear the guys cracking up over that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's great. But this is also a nice, pretty solid collection. And I mean, if you're kind of going by like a America's band theme, it's a nice mix of beach songs, car songs, throw in motorcycle there, and just overall love songs, girl songs. It's a nice mix. I mean, I don't know if it's a mix I would put together, but it does the job. I wouldn't say anything on it as a dud. Like, the only song I would skip is probably Good to My Baby. I don't really care much for
love
that.
that
I know
song.
you do, but I'm saying I don't really care too much for that. But
I would skip Tell Me Why. I mean, I love their rendition of it, but number one, you really need that in the context of the whole album.
well, yeah,
And number two, what's the name of this album?
Spirit of America.
What nationality are the composers of Tell
Yes,
Me
but yes, but I mean, something that the Beach Boys fans can hold their head up high about is that in 1964, in the middle of rampant Beatlemania,
When A Hard Day's Night was playing in the
when
theaters.
A Hard Day's Night was playing in the theaters,
featuring this song.
What song hit number 1 on the week of freaking 4th of July? I Get Around.
I Get Around.
So, I mean, the Beach Boys were like one of the few American acts that could give the Beatles a run for their money. And the Beatles knew it. And the Beatles dug it. The Beatles loved the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't really a competition per se, but just the fact that Beatlemania had taken over everything in this country, not just the radio, but television, movies, books, fashion, just trend. I mean, how many guys in 1964 and girls picked up a guitar for the first time because of the Beatles?
I did in the 80s because of the Beatles.
But I mean, it was crazy. And yet the Beach Boys were able to have a number 1 hit. And it wasn't like a tangential thing, like how Lorne Greene had a hit with that song called Ringo that had nothing to do with Ringo's Star.
He had originally released that like a couple of years earlier, and then they're like, wait a minute, there's a song called Ringo here.
So, I mean, it wasn't even like, like Paul McCartney once said he liked the Beach Boys, so everybody ran out and bought Beach Boys records that week. It wasn't even like that at all. They got a number 1 hit on their own merits. So, let them put Tell Me Why on Spirit of America.
Fine.
Because the Beach Boys took that song and had a hell of a lot of fun with it.
Now, something I've observed with this compilation and Endless Summer is that somebody at Capitol was in love with the All Summer Long album, because between Endless Summer and Spirit of America, you have 9 songs from that album.
Well,
9 songs.
I mean, All Summer Long's a pretty good collection.
It is. I'll give you that.
And I think it was kind of, you have the first 3 Beach Boys out, the Surfin' albums, Surfin' Safari, Surfin' USA, Surfer Girl. And then you had the 2 car album, had Little Deuce Coupe and Shutdown Volume 2. It's not like Brian Wilson sat down and said, all right, guys, we're going to start working on the Little Deuce Coupe album. Like, a lot of it was Capitol putting things together and trying to put product out on the market. So I think All Summer Long was kind of the first. It was the album that kind of bridged the early stuff that was more Capitol controlled and Brian really starting to settle in, which would actually lead him to what became today Summer Days, Summer Nights, and Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
That, it's like he was starting to really grow into his role as producer, arranger, and this album had a lot more intent. You also had the last surf songs, like Don't Back Down was their last really until Do It Again.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of a one-off for fun thing.
Yeah.
Don't Back Down was their last real surf song. And you also had around that time, I Get Around. I Gotta Find a New Place Where the Kids Are Hip. Brian was starting to look in other directions.
Yeah. Yep.
So All Summer Long was a very, very important album. And I don't think it's really given its due. But on these collections, it was, because it had a lot to offer.
Yeah. In general, though, Spirit of America, I'm going to say I didn't really like. I listened to it, and it didn't really do anything for me, listening to these songs one after the other. Oh, fun fact for you. Here in Chicago, there's a station called WCKG, which back in the 80s and 90s was classic rock. And for a time, they had a weekly Sunday night show called The Seventh Day. And it was hosted by a guy named Joe Thomas. And it's not the same Joe Thomas that produced with Brian. Well, like one of your classic rock DJs had this kind of voice, The Seventh Day, he'd play 5 hours worth of albums from start to finish without talking or anything. All the fade outs intact and everything. One year when July 4th was on a Sunday, he played Spirit of America because it's called Spirit of America.
Yeah.
And that was one of the very few times you'd ever hear the Beach Boys on that station.
Yeah.
But I listened to it then, and I thought it was kind of an odd but interesting collection. But listening to it now, I don't know. It just doesn't do
okay,
do
how
much
about
for
this, though? I mean, well, first of all, it did something back then because it went to number 8.
me. It was hugely
went-
successful, and
it
it might have gone higher if Endless Summer hadn't been keeping it
Yeah.
from going higher.
And I mean, that was also, that summer is when you also had the Beach-A-Go tour.
Yeah,
when
that's true.
The Beach Boys and Chicago touring together, which was an enormously successful tour. So you had a lot of just people, went to those concerts and went to the store and bought the record. I mean, I don't know if Spirit of America was pitched on TV like Endless Summer was. I really don't know. I don't remember ever
I don't
hearing
know
about
either.
that, but something worked. And now here's the thought. And I mean, yeah, I'm saying it. I think it's a good collection, but I mean, some of the songs, it's kind of like, I don't know if I would pick them, but think about this. What if this and Endless Summer was a 4-record set?
Man,
That would be pretty powerful because then you'd have pretty much all the pre-1966 singles, at least the A-sides, on one set.
yeah.
That would be a home run,
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah, and something that these two albums have in common. Well, number one, they were both issued on CD, on a gold CD, I think by DCC Compact Classics. So it's interesting they did that to Spirit of America. And also, at least the original pressings of this album were configured for stacking turntables. So you have sides 1 and 4 on one disc and 2 and 3 on the other. So I thought, would these things sound any different? Would they have a different vibe overall? Would they be just as great if you played them, say, in disc order rather than side order? Like, let's say you just played like disc 1 first. You listened to side 1, flipped it over, listened to side 4. I did an informal survey on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and a couple of other forums, and asked if anybody had ever listened to stack configured albums in disc order as opposed to side order. Not a single responder listened to them in any other order but the proper side order. So I didn't try it myself.
Yeah.
So
So then I think next we should go to Sunshine Dream.
Sunshine Dream.
And many of
yeah.
you are probably going, what the hell is that? Well, it's the third album in this, I don't even know if you want to call it a series, but it's another album that came out in 1982
Mhm.
and another compilation. It only went to number 180 on the charts.
Ooh.
So yeah, it didn't.
MIU charted better.
Yeah. And I
Well, so
mean,
did Sunflower.
to be fair, 1982 was a long way from 1975. I mean, the Beach Boys were they touring? Yeah, they
Yeah.
tour all the time. But
They
I
were
don't-
not in the best
but they
place
were-
at the time. though.
no. Yeah, considering that, you had Dennis wasn't well, Brian wasn't well. You
Was
had
Carl back yet?
I
touring with them?
I don't know
'Cause
if
I know he did
Carl-
another album in '83, but I don't know if he'd yet returned
I
to
don't
the
know
group.
if Carl had come back yet. And, 1982 was just a different time. You didn't have all the star-spangled rah-rah kind of feel at the time. It was a different era.
And they hadn't
and-
really released any new material in 2 years, really.
Well, the thing is, the material that they had released didn't sell very well.
No.
I mean, Keeping the Summer Alive was their most recent album, and that bombed. LA bombed. MIU bombed. I mean, Love You did okay, but that was probably more coming off of 15 Big Ones, which was a hit.
Yeah.
So I'm not really even sure why this collection came out, but I mean, it does have its notable things. And let's start with the cover artwork.
Oh, boy.
And I like to say
You
that
could do an entire episode just on that.
I like to say that this cover art, I mean, the artist, unlike what I complain about with Spirit of America, this does have like a heavy beach influence. So this may have been created specifically for the Beach Boys, or it could have been the result of some kind of fever dream. Because when you look at it just kind of at first glance, it looks cute and fun and all that. But when you take a deeper look at it, it's actually quite sinister. like on the back.
Whatever do you mean, dear?
Well, like on the back cover, you've got, of course, in the upper left corner, my favorite thing ever, a hot dog stand that looks like it's being tended to what I call the sinister undercover hot dog. It's obviously a hot dog wearing sunglasses and a little Hawaiian shirt.
That should be the picture with our Instagram post
Yes.
about this episode.
And you have a skinny guy facing a shadow of a large muscular person with the word geek across the chest. There's someone sawing a hole from underneath the sand. There's a surfboard, the collection of surfboards stuck in the sand, and one of them is a finger with a red polished nail. There's a happy alligator with a purple shirt in its mouth. There's a water ski with looks like a cast with no foot in it, bound to the ski. There's toes sticking up out of the sand with a crab pinching them. There's a disembodied hand coming out of a sand pail. I mean, it's just all these really weird, disturbing images, and it's almost kind of like the Beach Boys themselves. It's like on the surface, they look fun and happy, but when you start to really learn about them, it's like, ugh.
True that, true that.
There's some sinister stuff going on there. And it's just a very strange cover. But the tracks themselves, now here, I guess by then, things were more cleared up in terms of what Capitol had access to, because there's a lot more from later in the 60s.
Yeah, I think that deal with Warner Brothers had the rights to these songs was a 10-year deal starting in, I think, 1970 or 71.
Yeah.
Probably 70.
It's because, I mean, you have on here, let's see, again, let's talk about the singles. You have I Can Hear Music, which was went to number 24 in 1969. Here Today, which was from Pet Sounds and the B-side of Darlin'. And Darlin' itself, which went to 19. Caroline No, which was released under Brian's own name, that went to 32. I didn't realize it charted that well.
Yeah, me too.
And then Wouldn't It Be Nice, which went to number 8. Friends, which peaked at 47. God Only Knows, which was the B-side of Wouldn't It Be Nice. There's No Other Like My Baby, which had been the B-side of The Little Girl I Once Knew. You have Heroes and Villains, which everybody bemoans, but it went to number 12. That's not terrible.
It's not terrible, no.
All I Want to Do, which was the B-side of I Can Hear Music. Wild Honey, which went to number 31. And now here we have Cotton Fields.
But that's not the single version, though.
Okay, well, the single didn't chart. Boo-hoo. And
what
then,
do you mean, boo-hoo?
I didn't mean that sarcastically.
Oh, okay.
I meant boo-hoo. Like, it should have. And it charted everywhere else in the world. Let's see, Sloop John B., which went to number 3. Bluebirds Over the Mountain, which went to 61. And Do It Again, which went to number 12.
There's one you forgot to mention. Or did you forget? Or were you just strategically saving it for later?
No, the Beach Boys medley.
That's not the one I'm talking about.
What?
You didn't mention Good Vibrations.
Wait. Oh, yeah, I totally skipped over that. Yeah. Which went to number 1.
Went to number 1, yeah.
So there's some pretty heavy hitters on here.
Yeah.
And again, just looking at the singles, it's a pretty nice collection.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you talk about the album tracks?
Okay, the album tracks were Aren't You Glad?
Mm-hmm.
Vegetables. Oh, and
oh, God.
Yep, I knew this was coming, this reaction. How she boogalooed it.
Oh, God, yes.
Now, when I was listening to this this episode, I noticed that the hand claps were like super loud, and I don't think it's like that on any other version.
Oh, who cares? Oh, my God, I hate that song so much. That song should have been like, okay, first of all, this is what happens when Brian's not involved, because like they went and Mike, Bruce, Al, and Carl wrote this thing. Yeah, Dennis Fort was smart enough to not be anywhere near it. Oh my God, I hate this song. This song this song should have, like, it sounds like some crap that Jeff Barry wrote for the Rompin' a Monkeys episode.
Oh, you should hear the live version that's on one of the
No, I
Sunshine
shouldn't. No, I shouldn't.
from
No, I
60
shouldn't.
From 2017.
No, I shouldn't. This song needs to be flushed down the nearest toilet.
I'm Waiting for the Day.
Yes.
Album version of Cotton Fields, of course. Then I Kissed Her, I don't think was ever on a single, at least not.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Be Here in the Morning was definitely an album track. Keep an Eye on Summer, another song from All Summer Long.
No, it's from Shutdown Volume 2.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Yeah, that's right. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So, yeah, this is mostly singles.
Yeah, definitely more singles than on Spirit of America. And, I mean, you've got a nice sampling of Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
You've got a little bit of Smile, because you've got Vegetables, Heroes and Villains, and Good Vibrations.
Well, keep in mind that Vegetables is the Smiley Smile version. Well, the Smiley Smile version does have a little bit of Smile artifact in it.
Well, yeah.
At the very end. Oh, as does Do It Again.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is also, except for How She Boogalooed It, which just, again, it's like, I put this together as a playlist and was listening to it while I was going through crap at my mother's house. And it's like, I was like really digging it until How She Boogalooed It. I was like, ah!
Okay, I take it you don't care much for that song. All right. Now, this is interesting, though, because I noticed, at least for the most part, the Pet Sound stuff, at least on our pressing, there's hardly any bass at all. But on Here Today, you can actually hear more of all that Top Please stuff.
Oh, really?
Like, you can hear, if you listen to the isolated thing at the tail end of that Pet Sound Sessions disc where it has just that camera dialogue and all that, you'll hear that and you'll think, there's more than what I can hear. You can actually hear almost all of it on this particular Here Today instance, at least on our copy. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so it has a weird-ass cover and probably was not promoted well, but, I mean, for those who did pick it up, they got some really good listening.
When I first decided to give the Beach Boys a try, this was one of the records I grabbed at the library. So this was one of the first Beach Boys albums I ever heard, and I kind of liked it. I liked it. There was some stuff that really stuck out to me, like the Pet Sound stuff kind of stuck out to me a little bit. I liked Caroline No. There was, what else was it? Vegetables. I loved hearing that. And one more note about There's No Other Like My Baby. I don't know if they used the single version on this because, well, I never actually listened to our single of it. I think we have it.
Yeah, we do.
But the way it appears on this album is that as soon as the singing stops, it cuts. You don't hear any noise or anything. You almost wouldn't know that it's from Beach Boys Party because of how well it was edited. Then you have Beach Boys Medley. Oh, God. Terrible editing job on that, especially with Barbara Ann, how trying to bridge Barbara Ann, they actually have it slowed down to match the key of the previous. So it's like, ba, 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 and then ba, 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 ba.
Yeah, and this was released obviously in the wake of Stars on 45, which had been kind of a mashup single that was a big hit in, I think, the year before.
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't know. I don't know if there were any other acts that put out that kind of single.
The Beatles movie medley.
Oh, geez.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
No, I have not heard it either. And also, it kind of made me think also of Hooked on Classics.
I can see that,
which you're not very familiar with, but that was a record that came out in 1981. And I remember my teacher at the time would play it while we were working on stuff in class. It was basically a mashups of different motifs from well-known classical pieces that was done. It was actually done by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. It wasn't done by some podunk orchestra, but the whole thing was set to this obnoxious beat machine just to kind of keep this, like, to make it almost disco-y, and it's kind of terrible. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me just because I remember hearing it and like it just makes me think of good stuff because I really enjoyed that year, 3rd grade. But then they put out a bunch of other records that were just awful. There were like other Hooked on Classics or Hooked on a Love Song or something like that. And I think it was put out on K-Tel.
Well, of course it would have been.
Yeah.
But a couple of more observations about Beach Boys Medley. First of all, I want to say that the version of Shutdown that's part of Beach Boys Medley was the same version that was on the Capitol Records multi-artist compilation called Shutdown, because there are car sounds over it.
Huh.
It sounds real mean. Tack it up, buddy, gonna shut you down.
If anybody listening can confirm or deny that, let us know. And also, we got to mention the American Bandstand appearance with the Beach Boys lip syncing to this.
Oh, brother.
Dennis practically falling off the drum kit.
Yeah, Dennis was not well at that time.
And Brian lip syncing to Good Vibrations because they didn't have Carl. Well, there's our answer. Yeah, they didn't have Carl in 1982. So, yeah.
And, that was just very, very, very unfortunate.
Yeah. And Mike in his little Looking Back with Love satin jacket, I think.
Oh, it was just...
Oh,
it was just awful.
Yeah, good Lord. And, wow. I mean, there's not much else really to say about this other than it's also a sign of the times that, number one, the labels on the records were the purple Capitol Dome labels, the larger ones. So that's what they had in the 80s. And also, you get a feel that stackers were no longer in vogue because this is configured side 1 and side 2 on one record and sides 3 and 4 on the other. So it's just a kind of a sign of the progression of times in a way, in so many ways, actually. But something that I had to mention when we were planning this episode is that 2 record sets can really give you a good overall career retrospective of the Beach Boys, at least at the time. And the 4th one in that series, it's not really a series, of course, because number one, different labels, and also not really chronologically, we got to talk about is 10 Years of Harmony.
Yes. 10 Years of Harmony came out in 1981, but I thought we should discuss Sunshine Dream first.
Yeah.
Just because 10 Years of Harmony, it was put out on the Brother Caribou CBS label, and didn't have Keith McConnell's artwork. In fact,
no.
It's very White Album-esque that it's just a white cover with 10 Years of Harmony and the Beach Boys logo at that time.
Yeah.
And it only covers music from 1970 to 1980 or not.
Ish. Yeah.
Yeah, there is stuff from 80 on it.
Yeah. And
so
there is stuff from 69 on it too, but
so there's no album cover to rant about it because it's just white.
But there is an interesting story about the gatefold, though, because there was debate as to what the picture would be. Now, Bruce Johnston was rallying for a group picture with all 6 of them in there, but I don't remember who. I think it was Carl who said, well, we don't think your participation in the songs on this album warrants a group picture with you. So we'll put an inset picture of you in there. But Bruce said, no, either it's a group picture with all 6 of us or I don't want to be pictured at all. So what they settled with was a picture from the September 1st, 1977 Central Park concert that was taken backstage. You know what happened 2 days later?
Tell us.
Al Jardine turned 35 years old. Oh, yeah, and the Beach Boys kind of broke up in a big heated fight on the tarmac at Newark International Airport.
Yep.
Prompting Dennis to say, wait, what day is today? September 3rd? Okay, I'll remember that. The Beach Boys broke up on Al Jardine's birthday. I like that Dennis knew Al's birthday off the top of his head. But, of course, they made up and everything, and, you know, they were only broken up for a day or two.
And I like how in the picture they're all standing except Brian is sitting.
Oh, is he wearing that? I don't have it.
He's wearing that robe.
Okay, I thought he was wearing that ABBA thing he has.
No.
That makes him look like, I don't know.
But it's like, it has been said, if there's a chair, Brian Wilson will sit in it.
Yeah, I guess it goes way back. So, there's an interesting history behind this compilation. It was first proposed in the fall of 1980, originally scheduled for January of 81. and it was supposed to be a single record. Now, this is interesting because Bruce wanted The Lord's Prayer to be on it because it had been sitting albumless for all those years. He said, we should put it on here. He said, let's lease it from Capitol. It's never been on an album. Of course, we know that didn't happen. They couldn't finalize a list of songs. The album was delayed until May, and then it was delayed again until September. Now, here's something really fascinating. Bruce wanted to include a 6-minute smile montage. And he said, Brian doesn't know this.
But wouldn't that... Wait, both of those things would be outside, or had this not been set as a 10 Years of Harmony, like that focused on their 70s work?
I don't know if they had come up with the title yet.
Because, I mean... that would have been totally out of place if they, I mean, yeah.
It really would have been. But in July, CBS got a master that was put together without the Beach Boys' knowledge for this album. It was just one record. And one of the tracks included on it was Talk to Me for some reason.
Oh, God.
Turns out it was Jim Guercio who put that master together. CBS executives didn't like it. So later on, they had a conference call that was with Bruce, Mike, and Al, and 2 people from CBS who happened to be Beach Boys fans. They wanted to brainstorm a 2-record set, and they came up with something that was pretty close to what actually ended up being released. Meanwhile, the executives over at CBS wanted We Got Love, and for God knows what reason,
man.
Child of Winter.
Ugh.
And an unreleased single mix of School Days, but Al, Bruce, and Mike said no. The Beach Boys wanted some bonus tracks, providing that the tapes could be found. There was going to be something from a London concert from 1972 with Elton John. The Beach Boys wanted to include Jumpin' Jack Flash from the Beach-A-Go show from 1975 in Washington, D.C., and they considered possibly going back into the studio to record back in the USSR. Which I don't know if that actually... I know they did it in concert. I don't know if they ever actually did it in the studio. They had a tentative lineup in late September that, again, was pretty close to what actually came out. David Leaf himself came up with a suggested track list. I don't know who asked him, but apparently somebody inside asked him for one. And the song selection was pretty similar, but not quite the same order of what eventually came out.
Well, let's talk about this track listing.
Yeah, let's do that because
let's
we're pretty
not
much
talk
done
about
with the history.
and let's not talk about how things charted because that's kind of sad.
Oh boy.
Well, the album itself went to number 156 on the Billboard 200 album chart. So, first record, we have Add Some Music to Your Day from Sunflower, Roller Skating Child from The Beach Boys Love You, Disney Girls 1957 from Surf's Up, It's a Beautiful Day, which was a single, had never appeared on an album.
From 79.
From 1979. California Saga, California.
Single version specifically.
Yeah.
And the chaparral flows to the sea 'neath waves of golden sunshine. And have you...
Well, that's single, but the song also appeared on Holland. Won't You Come Out Tonight from MIU, and Marcella from Carl and the Passion's So Tough.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you do side 2?
Aw, how kind of you. Yeah, side 2 had rock and roll music, specifically the single version, and at least on our copy, that sounds really good. Going On, single version of It's Okay, and yes, there is a difference between the single version and album version. Anybody wants to know? Hit me up. Single version of Cool, Cool Water, San Miguel, an unreleased song at the time from 69, the unreleased single mix of School Days,
Up in the morning and after school.
Good Timin' and Sail On Sailor.
All right, and then side 3, you have Darlin', the live version from Beach Boys in Concert, Lady Linda from LA Light album, Sea Cruise, which was an unreleased track, previously unreleased track that had been recorded during 15 Big Ones, The Trader from Holland, This Whole World from Sunflower, Don't Go Near the Water from Surf's Up, and Surf's Up from Surf's Up.
Oh, Surf's Up, okay. And by the way, at least, again, this is coming from our copy. This whole world sounds amazingly good, especially considering that it's 5 tracks in when they cram 7 tracks on one side. And side 4, you have Come Go With Me, the usual version. Deirdre, She's Got Rhythm. River Song, yeah, they pulled something from Pacific Ocean Blue on there. Long Promised Road, Feel Flows, and Till I Die. And I got a feeling River Song was a pretty easy pull, considering that was also on Caribou Records from Pacific Ocean Blue, and Carl and Dennis wrote it together. And Carl, I don't think he was ever credited for contractual reasons at the time, but he actually sings on it. You can kind of hear him in the background.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And look at that. You have 29 songs.
Yep.
In fact, there's so much to love about this album. This is definitely... You can tell that fans were involved in putting it together.
Well, I mean, it does have stuff from MIU on it.
Well, here's the thing.
And LA Light Album.
Okay, here's the thing, and I'll tell you this. I recently sold our copy of MIU, our vinyl copy, because basically we were running out of room in our Beach Boys shelf, and I'm thinking, do I really need MIU on vinyl? So I sold it. But not until I checked to see if 10 Years of Harmony had Won't You Come Out Tonight, because I love that song. And it is on there. So there we go. That was my solution. My solution to the MIU problem. My solution was not yet released until this year, or last year.
Yeah.
But there's so much good stuff for fans, because you have some singles that if you never got around to buying before, well, you had them now. Even though I gotta say, California Saga on this sounds like garbage. On Greatest Hits Volume 3, Best of the Brother Years, it doesn't sound great, but it sounds better. I guess maybe the master itself just wasn't very good. You had some unreleased stuff. You had San Miguel and Sea Cruise, both sung by Dennis. And I'm wondering if Sea Cruise was ever actually finished, because it kind of fades out in the middle of a verse.
And it has River Song.
It has River Song, yeah. And that they crammed 29 songs on there. This is definitely made for fans.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day. You wouldn't get that anywhere else. Well, you could have gotten that as a single. It probably was on the Americathon soundtrack.
But only probably the most devout fans were ever aware of it.
Yeah, right.
Because the single did not chart.
And even then, if you had the previous albums, California, Rock and Roll Music, It's Okay, Cool Cool Water, uncommon single mixes there. And it covers all the albums between 1970 and 1980, including In Concert.
Yeah.
So this is a really good coverall for that.
And it kind of gives attention to a lot of stuff that did not get much attention in this country. Like, say, Sunflower.
Yeah.
I mean, Holland charted better than Sunflower, but still, it didn't get the due it should have gotten.
Yeah, that's such a great album. It's definitely one of my top 5 favorite Beach Boys albums, and it always has been ever since I heard it.
Well, it's just, I mean, you take Holland and the Beach Boys In Concert. I mean, both of those albums are so very 1973.
Yeah.
They fit in well with the times, and even the songs that they do on that from the 60s, they make them work in a 1973 context. And it just makes you wonder, I mean, because the following year you had Endless Summer, which, yes, was a massive hit. Yes, made them a lot of money. Yes, gave them a #1 record, and probably sold a hell of a lot of concert tickets.
Oh, yeah.
But did it stunt their growth as artists? It's something, I don't know. I mean, we'll never know, but it just feels like they were going on a trajectory that was really working. But you could also think, I mean, 1973 didn't last forever.
That's right.
Were they just hitting it right for that moment? Or could they have gone on to do more better original work and not mire themselves in oldies? I don't know.
Here's the thing. I can't blame Endless Summer. This only just occurred to me now, but I cannot blame Endless Summer for stunting their growth. I can only blame the Beach Boys. Because really, what did the Beach Boys do in the studio in 74 and 75? not
Next
a
to
hell of a lot of
nothing.
much, next to nothing. So they could have gone on that artistic trajectory. And in fact, something that always bugs me is that as late as 1977, possibly beyond, they were still doing some of their lesser known 70s stuff in concert, like that Capitol Center concert that's been going around for decades. Carl's sitting in an electric piano singing Feel Flows on that.
Mhm.
They're doing California Saga on that.
Yeah.
So they were still acknowledging that. But the thing is, they lost their mojo, I think, in 1973, like after they did Holland, because again, what did they do after that? Hardly a damn thing.
Well, I mean, what's the big event in 1973? Murray died.
But
And the whole mythology of Brian in bed really only happened after, like, it didn't happen in 1967. It didn't
No.
happen in 1969. It was really because even though Brian didn't have the work ethic that he had, say, in the Pet Sounds era, Brian still was doing stuff. Brian was still composing and recording and producing. But after Murray died, I think that just kind of pushed him over the edge.
it pushed him
And-
over the edge.
But that's the thing. It's like Brian was still kind of always their North Star. I mean, because you look, Holland is not Brian's album. Holland is more Carl and Dennis's album.
Yep.
But Brian was still there. They
He
still
was
dragged
kinda
his
there.
ass
They
all.
dragged his
They
ass.
dragged his ass, but he was still there. I have to wonder if after Murray died, when Brian really was in trouble, when Brian really took to his bed and filled himself with food and drugs and whatever, I wonder if that maybe affected the artistic trajectory that Carl and Dennis had been on, where they kind of just, again, they didn't have their North Star. Because the Beach Boys, you can't say they weren't doing anything because they were still tearing it up on the road.
On the road,
Yeah.
yes. But
I mean, they
what
were
in the
still-
studio. They're doing what? Battle Hymn of the Republic? And I don't think Dennis.
no.
I don't think Dennis lost anything at all because look what happened in '77. He had that
Well,
Pacific
yeah.
Ocean Blue. Good
yeah,
Lord.
but that was a solo album. That
Yeah.
wasn't a Beach Boys project. That was, he was kind of looking to go in his own direction. But
he was, yeah.
But I just think whatever was going on for them in 1973, there's probably several different forces that just kind of, it wasn't meant to be. Considering that Carl and Dennis proved that they could put out a really good album that was, still had a Beach Boys sound, but was also contemporary.
Yeah.
But then what happened after Brian went through the first round with Landy? It was all about, Brian producing, Brian's back, Brian's in the studio. And they just became totally reliant on Brian
That is
again.
true.
When Brian wasn't necessarily 100%. Maybe on particular days he was ready and raring to go, but he wasn't really back.
Yeah, and also, what was the reason CBS agreed to sign the Beach Boys? What was the one thing they wanted?
Smile.
No, Brian.
Oh, okay.
The stipulation was that they had to have Brian's involvement.
Well,
and then,
yeah.
of course,
Oh, yeah.
LA comes out and Brian's hardly on it
Mhm.
at all. They're like, what?
But wasn't
you guys doing
part
to me?
of the deal also to just, or am I talking more about the Warner
You're talking
deal?
Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
I'm talking
How
CBS.
Warner's wanted Smile.
Warner wanted Smile, and they ended up fining the Beach Boys because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have it out by 1973 as promised.
Yeah, because Brian had
Yeah.
zero interest in working on it, and Carl's like, yeah, this is not my thing.
And something I noticed, like with this whole Warner Brothers thing and Bruce saying, hey, we're going to have 6 minutes of Smile on here, and recent discussions on various online fora talking about previous plans to put out Smile. What's one thing that was in common with all of those announcements? Not a peep out of Brian.
Well,
Not
no,
a peep out of
because
him.
Brian had no interest
Yeah,
in it.
yep.
But the Beach
no one brought it
Boys,
up to him,
but the
probably.
other Beach Boys were using it as a bargaining chip
Yep.
because it was a valuable bargaining chip that they knew they could say, hey, we'll do Smile.
And-
Even though they all knew that it wasn't going to happen.
Man, I would love to know if Bruce actually did try to assemble anything for 10 Years of Harmony. That would be interesting if something like that existed somewhere. But for whatever it's worth, even though this album went to number 156, CBS was happy with it. And they actually wanted to do a second volume of just one disc for that, for the next fall. But it didn't happen. But what did happen was in 1983, there was a revamped version of 10 Years of Harmony called In Harmony. And it was just one record, 10 songs per side. And by the way, most of the information I came up with, if not all of it, for 10 Years of Harmony comes from the Add Some Music fanzine. I think it was Brad Elliott who wrote the article back then at the time the album came out.
Of course, what's interesting is that on 10 Years of Harmony, you don't have the song Endless Harmony.
Whose original title was
10 Years of Harmony.
Well, I think it was just 10 Years Harmony, but yeah, it's pretty much that same thing. And Bruce recorded a version of it with, I think it was with that one-off band California Music.
But then again, maybe it wouldn't have been. It's basically, for those who don't know the song, except for the final minute or so, the song is basically Bruce trying to do Still Crazy After All These Years, including with the tinkly piano and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so dippy, but then it goes into, just listen to the last minute where Carl takes over.
Yeah.
And we sing God Bless America, it's the land where we tour. She takes great care of us, and people love the way we sing. And then it has just the richest Beach Boys harmony moment ever.
Mm-hmm.
With
really
Carl,
cool.
like, belting out a beautiful high note.
Or is that might be Bruce, actually.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Bruce did high notes himself quite a lot. But those of you, by the way, who've heard Endless Harmony but have not heard 10 Years Harmony, it's pretty much the same thing, except the little tinkly, Still Crazy After All These Years things is the whole song. Even the part that we know that Carl sang, that part was also tinkly, piano-y.
And they sang, God bless America. It's a land where we toured.
And just for fun, I came up with a fantasy 2-record set covering 1981 and later, and there's no way in hell I was actually going to try to listen to this. Of course, it would have to include Kokomo. It starts with Kokomo, then Still Cruisin', Get You Back, and It's Getting Late, because those were all singles, and California Dreamin'. And let's see, next I had a live version of Summer in Paradise. Because apparently there are legal wranglings preventing anything from the studio version coming out.
Thank God for that.
You're Still a Mystery. That's Why God Made the Radio. Isn't It Time? And Rock and Roll to the Rescue. As dippy as Rock and Roll to the Rescue is, I think it's a good song. I really do. It's good and solid. Then side 3, you have Male Ego. She Believes in Love Again, which I don't like, but you got to include it. Somewhere Near Japan, although I think Al Jardine would step forward and say no. Chasing the Sky, because everybody wants that song. It's only been on a movie soundtrack, I think. You Still Believe in Me from the Paramount Theater at Madison Square Garden in 1993. And then on side 4, Keeping the Summer Alive from Nebworth. Carl's Big Chance, because why not? Somebody had a hard-on for All Summer Long. We might as well put another All Summer Long track on it. Problem Child, In My Car, and Summer's Gone. So, yeah.
No. 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 Nope. Nope. Nope.
And I don't know what I would call that thing. I don't know. Maybe I'd call it All Dauber Long or something.
I have a few words for it. No. Just listen to That's Why God Made the Radio and leave it at that.
So we talked about 4 double record sets. This is probably a dumb question, but do you have a favorite of the 4?
Well, Endless Summer, just because it was so formative for me. And yeah, I mean, nothing beats that.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Endless Summer, seriously, again, you just get knocked in the head over and over with hit after hit. And these are you just realize how many damn good songs they put out that did some serious chart action.
Well, I mean, it's that, and I mean, the other 3 albums all have great material
Yes.
on them.
Yes.
But none of that would have happened if it weren't for the songs that were on Endless Summer.
Yeah,
Like,
that's very
that
true.
is your core Beach Boys. That is why people still pay money to see Mike and Bruce in concert, or Al, or Brian. Like, that's why Beach Boys songs, like, okay, I mean, I don't think this spoils anything because it's well out there, but Stranger Things just came out with their, the first half of season 4. What song does the first episode end with?
Oh, it doesn't even end with it. It's
Oh,
just a transition.
Oh, okay. But what's in it?
California Dreamin'.
Yeah, because that takes place in 1986, and that was a Beach Boys song in
Yeah.
1986.
Yeah, I knew about that before I even saw it. Because
Yeah.
everybody's like, oh, California Dreamin'.
So, I mean, Beach Boys songs are still used in movies, in TV
Yeah.
shows, in advertising, and it's all because of those songs on Endless Summer, because that is
Yeah.
what started it. That is what got people interested. And at least those songs are going to be around forever.
Yeah, and I think, for me personally, I think overall, in terms of a really good listen, Endless Summer just nails it. Just great songs, and at least our copy sounds fantastic. If you're looking for something that's specifically just for fans, though, I think 10 Years of Harmony has the edge.
Either that or Sunshine Dream.
Sunshine Dream is nothing to sneeze at.
Because Sunshine Dream has so much of the material that you're not going to get from Endless Summer.
Yeah.
It's more the later in the 60s stuff, and the things that those of us in the fan community, I mean, it's so many of us got in the door with the early hits, but then we had to discover
Yes.
that later stuff because, I mean, I still remember my mother and I would drive down to my grandmother's house to go to the beach because my grandmother lived in this little summer cottage community, and we would just go to the beach there.
Yeah.
And it was about a half-hour drive, and I still remember hearing on the radio, like, it's Memorial Day, driving to the beach weekend, those, or it's the summer fun weekend, and you would hear a whole ton of Beach Boys songs in the mix, but you never heard things like Heroes and Villains. You never heard Darlin'. You never heard maybe you'd hear I Can Hear Music, but like, you wouldn't hear a lot of the stuff that you really fell into once you investigated more into the Beach Boys.
I remember one time when WCSF did have a Beach Boys weekend, we were shocked to hear Heroes and Villains and Sail on Sailor.
Oops, I meant WCBS, not WCSF. How silly.
That was shocking.
Yeah.
And man, 10 Years of Harmony, just a couple of more tidbits about it. The CD in America substituted the album versions of the singles only exclusives, except for Cool Cool Water for some reason. And also, there were liner notes written for 10 Years of Harmony that ended up not being used. The theory is that there was some internal squabbling over them. Surprise, surprise. And instead, they used printed lyrics, including the Phantom Surface Joy lyrics of Feel Flows for some reason. But overall, really, you listen to these 4 albums, the 2 record sets, you get a really good overall solid listen to the first 20 years of the Beach Boys. It's hard to beat that. And one thing I just want to say about Endless Summer is there's a reason that when you see the description of this episode posted, how we always like to put little teaser lyrics, random lyrics, just to talk about the episode. The ones that we're using for this episode, as much as I prefer mid-period Beach Boys 65 to 73, these are my favorite Beach Boys lyrics ever. We can't wait for June. We'll all be gone for the summer. We're on safari to stay. Oh, come on. Can you beat that? Can you beat that? You know what that is.
Well, actually, I can. Well, I don't want to say beat that because this isn't a competition, but my equivalent is won't be long till summertime is through, but not for us now. I mean, I know your point is endless summer.
That was the
And
endless
it's the
summer.
same thing that okay, on the calendar, summer is going to end, but not if you keep it in your mind all the time.
And even if you don't, it comes back.
Well, yeah.
And it will come back until the sun goes into supernova in about 6 billion years. So time's a wasting, folks.
Yeah, get to the beach. Don't argue with me.
So having said that, when this episode comes out, summer is just around the corner. And
so is Brian Wilson's birthday.
Exactly. The day before summer. Oh my goodness. The day before
I know,
summer
right?
is his birthday.
How perfect is that? And the big man's going to be 80.
Wow.
I know.
Anyway, we're hoping to have a really great summer, and we're hoping that most of you, if not all of you, do as well. There might be one or two of you that we hope has a pretty annoying summer.
No.
Okay.
Don't be like that.
All right. Okay.
Everybody should have a great
Everybody should
summer.
have a wonderful summer. So anyway, thank you all for listening. And until next time, I guess, yeah. Until next time, I'm just going to leave it at that. Until next time.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the ToonX podcast. Please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts or iTunes.
You can hear us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and just about every other provider out there. If ToonX isn't on your favorite provider, please let us know.
You can email us at toonxpodcast@gmail.com. Our website, which includes the show notes, is toonx.fab4it.com. Fab4it is spelled F-A-B and then the number 4 and then I-T.
Feel free to connect with us on social media. ToonX is on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram and Twitter, both under the handle of ToonX Podcast.
Our opening and closing theme, Melody 10, was written and performed by Scattered Frog. All other music and sounds used in this episode remain the properties of their respective copyright holders and are used for the purposes of commentary and review. No infringement is intended.
We'll talk to you next time, friends. Until then, don't back down from that wave.